Welcome to WebStarPress. This is an AI app built with ReactJS. You can ask anything, it will reply accordingly and accurately. For example, Redux versus React query. And this is the response. How many ounces in a cup? 8 ounces in a cup. Name best frameworks for ReactJS. Redux, MobX, React Router, Express, Flux, Next.js, Recompose, Gatsby, GraphQL, React Bootstrap. Tell me a joke. Nice. Translate hello in French. Bonjour. Okay, it's based on OpenAI and ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT in ReactJS applications. ChatGPT is a conversational AI language model developed by OpenAI. It can perform a wide range of tasks related to natural language processing, NLP. You can ask questions and get answers. You can generate text such as stories, summaries, poems, articles, or code. You can have a conversation with it on different topics. You can ask it to translate text from one language to another. There's a lot you can do with it. It is very helpful and can make you extremely productive. To use ChatGPT, you need a free account on OpenAI website. To use it in your website, you need a free API key from OpenAI website. This AI tool is very easy to build using ReactJS and OpenAI. In this video, we will look into that. But before that, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because I am bringing similar apps in coming videos. Okay, we will use OpenAI API platform along with Node.js and Express.js to create our own ChatGPT or ChatGPT powered REST API. We will create an API endpoint that takes a piece of information or question and returns a response. To start, we will need Node.js installed in PC. Go to Node.js website, download latest stable version and install it. Then we will need API key from OpenAI to communicate with ChatGPT. Go to OpenAI website and then click API link. Sign up for a free account or log into your account. Once you are in, under your account, click API keys, or from user menu, click view API keys. Create secret key, copy the key and save it to use later in your app. Then create a ReactJS app. Easy way to create a ReactJS app is to use Create React App. Open Terminal or command line tool from PC. I'm using Git for Windows for my terminal program. Inside a folder or directory, I will right click and select Git bash here. So open terminal and use npx create react app and then app or project name. Enter. This will create a React app in this folder. Once the app has been created, open app directory, open terminal in this directory and install project dependencies. Install nodemon as dev dependency. npm install nodemon with the dev dependency flag. Install project dependencies. npm install Axios, concurrently, .env, OpenAI, Express, body parser, and course. These are project dependencies. While these are being installed, let me walk you through what these dependencies do. Axios. It's a promise-based HTTP client for browser and Node.js. We will use Axios to send a post request to API endpoint. Concurrently, instead of using separate terminals for multiple commands, concurrently allows us to run multiple commands side by side or at the same time. After using concurrently, our server serving API endpoint and React scripts will run from one command using one terminal. .env. .env allows us to load environment variables from .env file, .env file. It helps us to secure secret keys or API keys. .env is integrated for Create React App based ReactJS app or project, but we will use .env for Express.js or Express app, and there we need .env package. OpenAI Node.js library. This library provides easy access to the OpenAI API from Node.js applications. Express is easy to use framework for Node.js. We will use it to create a server that will handle requests from frontend. It will have endpoint for OpenAI API. Body parser is Node.js body parsing middleware that helps us to parse incoming request bodies in a middleware before handlers. Course is a package for providing Express middleware that can be used to enable course with various options. NodeMon as a dev dependency is optional. It automatically restarts the Node application when file changes in the directory are detected. When you use NodeMon, you don't have to stop and start or restart the server to see changes in the app. These are the packages or dependencies that we need for the app. Dependencies have been installed. Let's have a look at package.json file. But first of all, I will move these two images inside src folder. Then I will open this directory in code editor. Alright, let's have a look at package.json file. Here are the dependencies and a dev dependency. I'm using React version 18 and React scripts version is 5. These are our scripts. Inside scripts, we have got commands: start, build, test, eject. This command is used like npm start to start the React application. So to start the application, I will need to use npm start. It will start the React application, but I need to create a server as well. Server will need to run for API endpoint to be available. I will create a file in src folder called server.js. I will get back to it in a minute. Now in the package.json, I will create 3 custom commands: server, client, and dev. Server is to run server.js. See its path. Server.js is in src folder. I will use NodeMon for this. You can also use just Node here instead. With NodeMon, we will not have to restart the server again and again to see file changes. Client is just start commands duplicate. Dev is the command that is using concurrently package to run 2 commands, this one and this one. npm run server and npm run client. So these 2 commands will run concurrently to start React application and start our server. Now I can use npm run dev instead of npm start to run server and client. Let's do it. So in the same folder, open terminal, npm run dev. And this is the default React application running. Let's change it. I will update the front end, then we will handle the backend. So dependencies are installed. We don't need package.json now. I'll get back to server.js in a minute. Open app.js. We will only need CSS file here and 2 images, ChatGPT PNG and app logo. CG logo and app logo. This is the code for the application. I will replace the app code with this code. It's got a form with input and button and a response area. CSS file, Let's remove this CSS. Font style, color, and background color for body. CSS flexbox for form styling. Adjust app logo size and position. Adjust image width. Adjust input box style. Background color, color border, font size, padding, flex 1, border radius. Adjust button style. Button hover style. Response area style. Footer style. Animation rotation 2 seconds, infinite linear. Animation rotation, this is the animation from 2 using keyframes, and these are two classes, CG logo and loading. So it will handle the loading animation. When record will be in loading state, we will spin logo, this logo, to show background progress. It will be done by adding and removing loading class for this image that has already got a class named as CG logo. So this is the CSS. Now front end is looking clean and nice. Let's change functionality. In app.js file, import useStateHook from React. Import the Axios module to make HTTP requests, images imports, and CSS import. Create state called prompt with an initial value of an empty string and a function called setPrompt that can be used to update the prompt state. Similarly, create two more states called response and loading. Loading state has an initial value of false. We've got three states: prompt, response, and loading. These states will be used in the app to manage the values of these variables and update the UI based on changes to these values. Use a function called handleSubmit that takes in an event object as a parameter. This parameter is usually passed when the function is used as a submit event handler for a form. Use ePreventDefault to prevent the default behavior of the form submission event. This default behavior would typically reload the page, but when ePreventDefault is used, the page reload is prevented. This function will interact with API, but I will get back to that in a minute. In this function, we will handle form submission. This form submission. So we used two images here, this one and this one. This image will rotate when loading state will be true. So instead of class name CG logo, let's use if loading is true, this state, then class should be CG logo and loading. Otherwise, use only this class. So CG logo and loading. If both classes will be together, animation will be displayed. Form will use onSubmit event and fire this function handleSubmit. Input value prompt coming from this state. Input will show value from prompt state. On changing input value, change prompt state. Set prompt target value. Prompt state will be updated when we will change input value. So typing an input field will update prompt state according to the typed text, and then text from this state will be reflected as value of input field. Response area. If data is loading, we will show loading text. In case loading state is true, loading text will be displayed. Otherwise, we will show a response from this state. So this is done. Now let's handle form submit. Once the form is submitted and this function is triggered, set loading to true. Set this state to true. When this state will be true, logo will start spinning and loading text will be displayed. Send a request to the server with the prompt or question. This is the prompt. Text stored in this state. It is the value of the input. Axios will post this prompt, this text, to this endpoint. We will create this endpoint in server in a minute. This URL is the endpoint our server will provide. Then get response from server, and from this response, store this data in response state. Response data will have response from server. Update the response state with the server's response. After that, set loading to false, indicating that we have the data and it's time to display it. To catch error, use this from Axios. Console log error. So this is it for handle submit. When form will be submitted, we will take the question from this input and send a post request to this URL. This is all for the front end. Let me give you an overview again. When we will type in the input field, prompt state will be updated and same will be displayed here as value. When we will submit the form, this function will be triggered. Loading state will be set to true. Using Axios, we will hit API endpoint containing data or question stored in the prompt state. That is the value of input field. Response will be provided by API endpoint. We will update response state and set loading state to false. Once response state will have data, it will be displayed in the app here in the response area. Now we don't need this text. Alright. At the root of the project, create a file with the name .env at the root. Inside this file, provide API key in quotes with the name. We will access this API key using this name in Express app. Just make sure you don't push this file, this .env file, to GitHub or anywhere else because this key is a private key. Save, close. Now let's create this server. Server.js file. Here we will import or include dependencies, use middlewares, create API endpoint, and create a server. Import Express by requiring Express. We used require here because this file is handled by Node.js or Express and not ReactJS. In ReactJS, we import by using import and not require. Import.env and use config method so that our API key is loaded into the environment. Import course module. The course module is a middleware for Express.js that allows you to handle course origin resource sharing requests. Course is a security feature that restricts access to the resources on the server from a different domain. By default, web browsers block requests from a different domain for security reasons, the course middleware allows you to specify which origins are allowed to access your server, making it possible to handle cross-origin requests. Import body parser middleware. It is used to parse the incoming request bodies. In an Express.js application, incoming HTTP requests can have a payload in their body, like this one that is coming this prompt from this state. This is the payload with the post request. The payload can contain data in various formats such as JSON, form data, or XML. The body parser middleware is used to extract this data and make it easy to be accessible in the request object. We will need these two imports from OpenAI. First is configuration, which is object for defining things like our API key. Second one is OpenAI API. This object, once instantiated, will give us an easy interface for interacting with OpenAI API and generating images and text based on prompts. Okay, now let's set up this server. Create a server object by making a variable app and setting it equal to express and then calling the function express. Call app.use. Inside of that, call body parser that we created here. This adds a piece of middleware that is the code that will run on every request which parses the body of the request into a JSON format. Use course middleware to handle course requests. Now let's set up API endpoint. To get endpoint running, we need to set up OpenAI. Create a variable called configuration and set it equal to new configuration. And pass this an object with API key. So as the value, now we will use process.env dot API key name that we used in .env file. Under this, we will create another variable called OpenAI. Set this equal to OpenAI API object and pass it our configuration. To start using it, we will use our app variable and listen to the post request. First argument of this function is where we want to listen to the post request. I will use /chat. Like we used here, /chat. And this will be our server URL with the port that we will create. So first argument /chat. Second argument is async with two arguments, a request object and response object. We want to run it asynchronously when endpoint is hit. Inside the function, get the prompt from the request body. Destructure request body object to extract the prompt. Destructure request body object to extract the prompt property from the object. This prompt is coming from here, this one. This is the input value. This prompt value is expected to be sent as a JSON payload in the body of the post request. This is the payload as part of request body, and we destructured it here. Next, we generate a response from ChatGPT or OpenAI. Create a variable called completion and set it equal to the OpenAI.createCompletion method, but use a wait keyword to wait for the asynchronous completion of the OpenAI.createCompletion method. This method is used to generate a response to the user's prompt using the text DaVinci 003 OpenAI model. The method takes an object as an argument with few properties like model, prompt, and max tokens. Model is the identifier of the OpenAI model to use for the completion. You can have a look at available models at OpenAI docs. We are using this text DaVinci 003. That is the latest right now as the time when this video is being created. Prompt is the text prompt to be completed by OpenAI model. This is the prompt. This is the question that is to be completed by the model, or that is to be satisfied by the model, or that needs a response from ChatGPT. Max underscore tokens. Max tokens is the maximum number of tokens that are words or word-like units to generate in the completion. Higher tokens will generate bigger response but increase response time. It's basically the length of response text. So OpenAI docs, inserting text, use max tokens greater than 256. According to OpenAI docs, use max tokens more than 256. So after that, return completion object with the data property. So this method returns completion object with the data property. The data property is an object that contains the response. Response lives on completion.data.choices. Extract the first choice of text using the completion.data.choices 0.text. Response.send. So send it back to the client as the response to the post request by using the response send method. Response.data. Data from this. So it will be stored in response, and this response will be displayed here. Alright, so let's start the server by defining a port 5555 that we used here. You can change it to your liking. So this is localhost, port is 5555/chat. This is endpoint, this one. So define a port for the server to run on. Listen to the port to start the server. App.listen to the port. Pass port as the first argument. Then use a function that logs the messages that server is running on this port. And then URL. Message log just shows that server is working. So that's about it. Once all done, we can restart the server for a good measure. npm run dev again. Here is the app. No errors. And here is our application. Let's test it. Tell me a joke. Loading. Spinner is running. Why don't scientists trust atoms? Answer is because they make up everything. Nice. What to watch on Netflix? Well, here are some recommendations. How many humans are there on planet Earth? According to United Nations, there are approximately 7.8 billion humans on planet Earth. All right. How to screenshot on Mac? There are a few different ways to take a screenshot on a Mac, and these are a few recommendations. It's working. So this is how you can create your own version of ChatGPT, or use ChatGPT in your website or web application, or use OpenAI API to use ChatGPT in your application using ReactJS, Node.js, and Express. You can follow this guide to create similar application, or you can download code from GitHub, extract the code in a directory, browse project directory. You need to have Node.js installed in your PC to use it. Open terminal in project folder. Install dependencies by using command npm I or npm install or yarn install for whichever package manager you use. After dependencies have been installed, open project in code editor, edit.env file, and provide API key from your OpenAI account. Then in project folder, in opened terminal, use command npm run dev to start the application. Application will start and you will be able to communicate with ChatGPT using it. Link for the code is in the description. Okay, I hope it helped. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video.